Hi, and welcome to Studio SN. My name is Sara Naumann, and today we're going to play with watercolor crayons. Watercolor crayons are one of my staple supplies. They're inexpensive and you can do a ton of different techniques with them. So they're a super good value. And today I want to show you how to create a background using watercolor crayons and also how to do some simple stamping. So let me show you the crayons that I use. These are from Faber-Castell, and this is a 12-pack that I bought at a stamping show probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it looks like I paid a little over $6 for them. And you can see that they have been used and abused over the years and have held up beautifully. I use these really pretty consistently. So when I say they're a good value, that's what I'm talking about. Now to create the background, I'm going to start with a little plastic container or shallow container. And this is a repurposed yogurt lid, and I save these for stuff like this. And I'm going to grab one of my crayons, and this is a nice dark blue, and I'm also going to use this retractable X-Acto knife, and you just push down the top and it extends the blade. Something similar will do the trick if you don't have one of these. You just need something that can shave off some of the crayon, and I'm using the blunt end of the crayon. So the other side, this is the tip that I would use for drawing or coloring with. And I just need to get a little bit of this kind of powdery substance in here, right into my container. And the more that I shave off, obviously the more concentrated or the richer my color will be. So I'm just going to scrape off a little bit of this. I think I have enough. Put my crayon back and retract my blade. And then I need to bring in some water, and I just got a cup of regular tap water here and pour in a little bit. You don't need a whole lot. And then I'm just going to take a brush and blend that color. I really just want the pieces of crayon to dissolve in here. So I'm going to have to kind of smoosh down some of these bigger pieces. And it only takes a couple of minutes. There is a brush included with your watercolor crayon set. It's not this one. I was looking all over for my brush for my watercolor set and I could not find it, but you do get one in there with your 12 crayons. Okay, so I've got it pretty much mixed up. Everything is pretty much dissolved. Set my paintbrush aside, and then I'm going to bring in a stack of paper. And I've got a piece of glossy paper on top. This is just a stack of paper that I pulled out of the recycling bin. And I'm going to use this to kind of absorb some of the excess water, because I'll take my plastic container, and this is where it helps to have something that's a little bit flexible so that you can put down some of this color like so. I'm just dropping it directly on here, and then I'm going to kind of let it roll around and run this way and run that way. Lift it up, lift it down, and you can get some really cool shapes. If I have a big open empty area, I can drop some more down there. You can really have fun with this part of the process. And then when I've got some watery paint on here, I'm going to turn it over and just drop it down onto my scrap paper here. And you can do this technique onto your craft sheet, but your craft sheet is not porous. And so you'll be kind of sliding it around in more watery stuff rather than, you know, here the paper is going to absorb some of this and blot it down. And then you'll end up with something like this. Now it looks like I've still got some of those chunks from my watercolor shaving on there, which is actually kind of cool. I sort of like that effect. If I wanted to, I could go back and add some more color, but I think for now I'll just set it aside and let it dry. Now I can also hit it with a heat gun if I need to speed up the drying time, or I can just let it set aside and air dry. Now for my stamping, again I'm going to bring in a piece of glossy cardstock and my stamp. And my stamps are from Paper Artsy, and the stamp that I want is this feather design. And you'll notice on here that there's some really beautiful detailed swirls and patterns on that feather. One thing with this technique, because it is a watercolor effect, you're not really going to capture all of those intricate details on the stamp. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind as you're choosing your stamp, but you'll still get a really cool effect. Okay, so I've got my stamp on my clear block, and I'm going to get that same crayon that I used, bring back my little container, and just add some more water And then I'm going to use the blunt side of my crayon and just dip it in. Let me move this aside. Dip it into the water and use it as an applicator. And just put that directly onto my stamp. Scrubbing that in. And this is pretty watery, so don't be afraid of that. So I've got that all inked up, if you will. I'm going to turn this over and stamp. And then lift off my design. So you can see that it's a very watery effect. I really have only captured a little bit of the detail on there, but it still gives a very, very cool look. And that's exactly the look that we wanted. So let me bring back in my original card and just show you the finished design once again. I experimented with matting the various pieces onto different colors of cardstock and stuff, and it really just didn't go. It seemed to me to look nicer with just putting down that feather piece onto the background and letting the two just simply complement each other. So it's a very simple card design, but I think one that's also really pretty effective. Now, as for the ribbon tied down here at the bottom, I have to show you this ribbon. I bought this ribbon, I don't know how many years ago, and I don't remember for what purpose, but it's like a variegated rainbow colored ribbon, and for the life of me could not use it on any project that I would try to put it onto various cards and things, and it just didn't go. So I was really excited to put it down onto this card and thought, hey, this actually works perfectly. So sometimes if you're holding on to ribbons and other art supplies thinking, oh, I'll use it one day, well, maybe you will use it one day like I did. So I just tied a knot in a piece of that ribbon and then wrapped it around the bottom of the card before putting, or around the bottom of this panel before putting it onto the card front. So it is a very, very simple design, but one that I think is really effective with the watercolor technique. So this is how easy it is to use a watercolor crayons to make a background and to do some stamping. I hope you enjoyed today's segment. Thanks so much for joining me today. For more inspiration, please do stop by my website at saranaumann.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.